I was doing back and I was deadlifting and did my exercise, was fine. Left the gym, was fine. And then Thursday was completely fine. And then Friday I was completely fine. And then Saturday I went flying, and for some reason my back, the muscles in my back just tightened up, my lower back. They just completely tightened up and just kept getting tighter and tighter as I was flying. And I got home and I was like emptying the dishwasher, and I bent over and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Welcome to Bed, Back, and Beyond, sharing positive stories of recovery from serious back or neck injury. Your host is CK, a fellow champion who draws on her own experience with herniated disc surgery. Join her as she talks with others who have overcome the physical and emotional trauma of a painful injury, and discover for yourself how you can find hope and encouragement in recovery.
Hi, Jarrett. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Bed, Back, and Beyond. Before we dive into your injury, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jared. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I currently work as an aircraft power plant engineer. In my free time, I have a dog. And before my injury, I used to like to fly. I was getting my instrument and commercial pilot's license whenever I got hurt.
Wow. So living in Kentucky, does that mean you're a bourbon fan? Is it
I
bourbon or is
actually
it
don't
whiskey?
drink
You
at all.
don't?
It is
Okay.
bourbon.
It
It
is
is
bourbon.
bourbon, but
Okay.
I don't drink. I have enough health issues with the back and everything else, so I decided to
Yeah.
stay away from it.
I went to Kentucky for something a couple years ago, and just the signs everywhere for
Everywhere.
Angel, I think was one. And
Angel's Envy, yeah.
bourbon. Yeah.
Anytime I travel anywhere, people are like, bring like a bottle. Because I'm going up to Chicago in a few weeks, and my buddy's up there, and he's like, go get me this bottle. And it's like $40 here. But
Mm-hmm.
up in Chicago, it's over 200. So it's,
Wow.
yeah, there are
And you
perks.
and you said you're an aircraft engineer?
Yeah, so jet engines. So I'm a jet engine engineer. So
Okay.
for
Hands-on or a
my
lot of spreadsheets?
mine is more project management. I run two engine shops, one in Minneapolis and one in Hanover, Germany. So I'm in charge of when the engines come off the aircraft for heavy maintenance. I build the entire work scopes. I answer any questions that the shop has. I run the finances. I'm just the manager. I own everything that happens on our engines. And I've been over to Germany twice this year since I've gotten clear from my back injury, in Minneapolis twice. And I have another visit up there in the coming weeks.
Wow, how long have you been doing that?
About 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's
Yeah.
great. So then when did you start having some back issues?
Well, so I was lifting. I had a weightlifting injury. It was January of 2023. It was January 5th to be exact. I was at 10% body fat, was doing a lot of heavy lifting, had a trainer, was wearing a weightlifting belt.
Oh, were you a
And
competitor?
no, I just
No?
wanted to
Okay.
look good. That's
Just
all.
loved it.
It wasn't even about heavy weight really for me.
Yeah.
It was just I wanted to look good.
Okay.
And I went to the gym. It was a Wednesday night, I believe. And I was doing back and I was deadlifting and did my exercise, was fine. Left the gym, was fine. And then Thursday was completely fine. Or no, it was a Thursday, and then Friday I was completely fine. And then Saturday I went flying, and for some reason my back, the muscles in my back just tightened up, my lower back. They just completely tightened up and just kept getting tighter and tighter as I was flying. And I got home and I was like emptying the dishwasher, and I bent over and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And I was just laughing about it because I'm like, I threw out my back. I was 22 at the time. So I was just like, okay. I threw out my back. I ended up like pouring a hot bath and like with Epsom salt and all that, and just laid there and was just laughing. I'm like, what did I do? And yeah, I just bulged it at that point. And I was able to do some exercises at home because my mom has had the same level, the L4, L5. She ruptured hers and had the same surgery. And she's like, you need to do exercises. And she's also had her neck fused. So she was bossing me around the entire time. She's like, don't hurt your back. And I did some exercises and I got it manageable. I had a little bit of sciatica down my right leg, mainly into my glute and hip area. That's really it. And I took 20 days off from the gym. And on the January 25th, this one was a Wednesday, I was doing legs and I was squatting. I didn't put much weight on there because I wanted to go really easy. So I think I was doing like 135. And I left the gym. I was fine. And Thursday, I was fine. Friday, I was sitting in the office and my back just tightened up again. And it didn't get better, unfortunately, because at that point I had herniated it. And I just had that shooting pain down my right leg, really in my glute only at this point. It changed so much throughout the entire process, but it was only in my glute and hip area I was having that pain. I had no back pain at all. And I could just barely sit at all. I couldn't sit much. Standing was fine, walking was fine, laying down didn't cause me any issues, but sitting, I just couldn't do it. And I have a desk job, so that was an issue. And I tried doing some at-home exercises and all that, and it didn't really help. And I go to my doctor, and they put me on just like a steroid. Didn't help.
Didn't help. Now
And
you
then,
said with the
yeah,
first time,
hmm
you said it was just bulging the first
hmm
time. Did
yeah,
you get a MRI
nope.
with that first time? No,
It
you
just,
just
I just assume it was bulging because it's just how it felt based on everything I know, and then it got better. So maybe it was just protruding or something out a little bit. I fixed it, and then I ended up completely rupturing it. And I didn't find that out though until like I did the steroids to try to get the inflammation down. Didn't help. Got another steroid pack. Didn't help. And then he tried to refer me to just a neurosurgeon. And my sister, she's a doctor. She's like, you need to go to physical therapy. Don't go to a neurosurgeon. Go do PT. Go get that knocked out. So I started that, and it helped a little bit, but it really wasn't doing too much. And then I went and I got an MRI and found out that I had herniated my L4, L5, and it was compressing my L5 nerve running down my right leg. So then I was like doing PT. It helped a little bit. It wasn't doing too much for me. And the pain ended up starting to move down into my knee to where it was like you have a pressure on both sides of your knee. And it was not getting better. So then I went to the neurosurgeon and they were just like, okay, well, let's get you an epidural. And I was like, sure, this is going to cure my issues. It has to. And I got the epidural and it felt good for about 30 minutes and then it just did nothing. It did not help me at all. So then it was like June at this time, and my surgeon's just like, okay, well, you've done physical therapy for about 6 months, and you've gotten an epidural, you've tried these steroid packs. I would recommend you getting a micro discectomy. And I was just like, well, crap, I'm 23 now. And I need a back surgery, a lower back surgery, which I mean, I'm not sure if you've had the same issues, but when you're in that much pain, because there's no way to describe it, it's like, I'll do anything to make it stop. And I went with him and I was like, I'm going to get a second opinion because I just wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. And I went to a second back surgeon. He reviewed and he's like, yep. I mean, with this surgery, it's pretty easy. It's pretty routine. If you're going to get a back surgery, this is one of the ones you want to get. And he actually was like, I would recommend getting an open discectomy, though, because with the tube, and with you being so young, want to go in with the tube, they go through the muscle and they have to grind down a little bit more of the joint. And I was like, now I wanted you just to agree with him and be like, okay, go do that. But no, now he gave me more information. And me being an engineer, I was like, okay, well, now I need to look into this more. So then my sister and I kind of sat down and we reviewed a lot of the studies, and it said that they pretty much had similar outcomes. I mean, it might be a little harder in the beginning with the open discectomy because it's a larger incision, and it made sense to me to get less of the joint removed. So I was like, okay. And they just pull the muscle to the side instead of going through it. I'll do that.
did they have to do a laminectomy as well, or
Yeah,
just the
it was a
open?
lumbar
Okay.
decompression consisting of a laminectomy and discectomy.
Okay.
And so I got the open discectomy with the second surgeon on July 12th of 2023. And I come out of the surgery. I had a little pain in the ball of the right of my foot, and they gave me pain medicine. Gone. No pain anymore. Which they did say, which surgery was the right option for me ultimately for the first one, because whenever they got in there, they said that the disc had like kind of started to calcify over. It wasn't going in. The veins had started like wrapping around my nerve. So he was like, it was, I think it was supposed to be like a 45-minute surgery, and it took about an hour and 15 minutes. So,
Yeah, so I was under for 3 hours because my, I don't know if they never used the word calcified, but
mhm.
my disc was glued to the, spinal cord with scar tissue.
Oh,
So they tore the dura, So then
Hmm.
I had to stay in the hospital for 3 nights, but they
Yikes.
couldn't remove it all, so I still have, like, a chunk of disc, like,
Yeah.
on my spinal cord,
Just hanging out.
just hanging out.
Yeah.
And then so
That's,
they made the hole in the laminectomy bigger
mhm.
so that
Yeah.
the nerve still has freedom of movement, but
Well, that's nice at least. Have you
yeah.
seen any kind of relief at all through your
Oh,
surgery?
mostly. I
Good.
am probably, like, 95% pain-free,
Hmm.
and then every once in a while when I overdo it, like,
Yeah.
I was doing some painting this summer, you
Hmm.
know, rolling the paint and stuff, and then that will cause a flare, and the
Yeah.
numbness in my leg never went away, so it's and
Oh.
this is 5 years now, so,
Hmm.
yeah, so I
Geez.
still have the numbness,
Okay. You
but
know, that's better than
I'm
pain.
mostly
That's pain.
pain-free.
That's
Yeah,
better than the
thank you.
pain.
Like you said,
Yeah.
I was like, just give me the
Just
surgery."
get it over with. Yeah. And so I got the surgery and it went great and I had no issues for 10 days. I had no pain at all. I was off the painkillers in a few days. I honestly didn't like the painkillers or the muscle relaxers. They don't do anything for the nerve pain. And I was finding with the muscle relaxers, I wasn't able to support my spine as much, so it kind of caused me a little sensitivity. So I just went off of that pretty much from the beginning. And then 10 days post-op, I was walking, doing my walks. I was just walking laps around the house, and I got this weird buzzing, like a vibrating on like where my foot transitions to my leg on like the inside of it, and it just started buzzing. And I was like, "That's weird," but they said there was going to be inflammation around 2 weeks, so I guess that's normal.
Did you hear that on the Reddit community?
I was looking for so many answers, and I was just
Yeah,
like, "Please, it's fine. Everything's fine. I haven't had pain. It's fine. I'm fine. There's no way I'm part of like the 10% that has it re-herniate."
yeah.
And it just continued to get worse and worse and worse to the point where it wasn't in my glute and knee. It was wrapping all the way around my leg, into my foot, into my big toe. And it became this constricting, constant, like I couldn't sit, I couldn't lay down, and I couldn't stand without a constant pain. And walking wouldn't help. And they put me on, at my 3 week post op visit, they put me on a steroid pack and they're like, this should knock out the inflammation. You'll be good. Didn't help.
Didn't help. So was
Yeah.
that pain worse than the
Yes.
pain you were experiencing prior to surgery?
They're very similar, but yeah, I would say it was worse. And um, I was just like, say, I couldn't bend or twist. They told me
Yeah,
that
so
just
you were following
while
those rules.
I didn't bend, I didn't twist, I didn't have anything, I didn't fall, I didn't have anything happen. I wasn't lifting more than 10 pounds, and I was still in this crippling pain. And it was about 6 weeks, I was like, I started to demand, I'm like, I have to get another MRI. Something is not right. And my mom actually, hers had re-herniated as well, but she like fell like 4 weeks after her surgery. But I demanded an MRI after a while because I was just like, we've been on steroid packs, nothing is helping. I am in crippling. I can't sit. I can barely work. I would like sit at my desk and I would just like get on my knees because I was like, I don't want to stand anymore. My feet are hurting. I was just trying to do anything. And I finally got an MRI and an X-ray, and it was 6 weeks post-op on the day. And it popped up. I was working at the time. I was working from home because my company was great. They were like, do whatever you got to do. And it recurrent disc, and it was now pushing on the scar tissue, which was then compressing my L5 nerve again. And I like messaged my manager like, I'm done for the day. I'll call you later. And it was terrible. Like I'm not gonna.
What did you think and feel when they said it's a reherniation?
I mean I can't lie to you. I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm 23. I'm in constant pain. I'm pretty much crippled. At the time, I was living with my parents just because I needed so much help, and I was just devastated. I was just like, this pain's never gonna stop. I was pretty much crying every hour for like a month because I was
You
just
had
like,
the
this.
everyone's worst nightmare come true.
I was like, why has this happened? And I had to completely stop flying too whenever I got hurt, and it it honestly was terrible. Now, a lot of people don't really know, like the pain is one thing, and no one knows what that pain is like unless you experience the actual pain. And then I got a taste of what it was like to have it go away, with the surgery, and I was like, finally, I'm going to be able to get my life back. And then it popped right back out, and it was terrible. I was in so much pain. I was, yeah, pretty much depressed about it. I was just like, why is this happening?
Yeah, and I can't believe you had to wait 6 weeks just for another MRI.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of how it goes with the surgeons. They're hard to get in contact with, and I was just like, I was trying to tell them, like, I'm trying not to be dramatic here. I've tried every steroid pack you've given me. It's not getting better. I, and at this point, I was sitting there and I was like, I'm in as much pain, if not more pain, than I was before surgery. And now I'm more limited. I can't bend. I can't twist. I can't lift anything. I can't do anything. So now I'm in a worse spot than I was after the first surgery. And one thing that I've actually seen in like the microdiscectomy communities is like how that has an impact on like your relationships. And at that point in time, I was in a 5-year relationship. And about 1 or 2 weeks after it had herniated, my girlfriend at the time had moved away from medical school. And she was like, I don't have time to really deal with this, and asked for like a 3 month break. But yeah,
That's
it's funny.
that's terrible.
It's
That's
funny
terrible.
now. It is. And I was just like
I
living
need
in
you.
my parents' house,
Yeah.
completely disabled, and she's on a college campus for med school. I was like, this not gonna happen. I'm sorry.
Ugh,
And I was actually reading through like the community, and I saw someone else be like, yeah, my wife left me, and I was like, damn, this is how it goes.
I missed
And
that post. Oh my
yeah, and
goodness.
they were like, I talked to my surgeon, and my surgeon's like, yeah, that happens sometimes. But I mean, in all honesty, it's good to figure that kind of stuff out if someone's going to be there for you.
Yeah, now you know.
It's it's a funny story thinking back on it now, but yeah, I had that happen, and then I was going to my surgeon, and he was like, "Hey, we're gonna send you to pain management. We're gonna get you this new steroid injection. It's not gonna be an epidural. That's not gonna help you. I think it was like a transfemoral block, so they go in from the side and go directly on the area. It was great because it just numbed my leg for about 6 hours, and I was walking around all like wobbly, but it didn't help. It did not help, and I ended up writing down like 15 different questions because I was researching like artificial disc because I didn't want to get a fusion. I was like, I'm 23 years old. If I get a fusion now, I'm then going to get another level done and then another level done. And it's just going to be chasing up my spine. And I went into my surgeon and I was just like, I pretty much held him hostage there for about 30 to 45 minutes, which it's hard to get them for that long. And I was just like, I am completely disabled right now. Number one, what do you think of this like artificial disc? And he's like, I wouldn't recommend it with where it's at right now. It'll shift. You're young. You're gonna have to get it replaced a bunch. And I was like, okay. And I was like, when could I ever see? And he's like, when would the scar tissue start to go in? He's like, at a minimum, probably about 2 years. And I was like, so I could wait 2 years and see if it's the scar tissue that's the problem or if it's the new herniation. He's like, yeah. And I was like, what would you do? And he goes, if you are in so much pain where you cannot live, do you have another option? And I was like, probably not. So my surgeon told me, he's like, I don't think if you are in so much pain where you don't have any other options, I think we could do another discectomy. And I was like, okay, but if I get the second one, is that just like it? Like, is if that doesn't work, I'm just getting confused at that point. Is that what? And he's just like, well, depending on how much we remove this time, we might be able to do a third one. And I was like, if this one doesn't work, something's messed up with my disc. Something else is going on, and we're not solving the actual problem I have. So,
Did they tell you how many millimeters, like the first herniation or second? Okay. Some people know that.
yeah, so yeah, I know. And the crazy thing about it was my primary care doctor is the one who, in the beginning, referred me to get the MRI. So insurance denied it. So then I went and paid out of pocket to get it done. So I don't think they really gave me as much details on it, but I was able to actually pull it up on my laptop and see my herniation, which was nice. But now the second one I didn't know either, but it was still a lot smaller, but it was now just pushing on that scar tissue. So yeah. And of course, I was like asking, can you clean up the scar tissue in there? And he's just like, no, because if you do that, you can run into like, if it's up against bone, yes, we can clean that up. But if it's up against anything else, we don't want to like nick your like spinal cord, like you were talking about, or well, it doesn't really run that low, but like hit your nerve and damage it. So we typically just let it be. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll get the second surgery. And that was like a Wednesday. And their surgery scheduling calls me on Thursday. And they're like, okay, we can get you in about a month. And I was like, when is the soonest you can get me in? Can you get me in tomorrow? And they're like, we can get you in on Wednesday of next, or like Tuesday of next week. And I'm like, deal. So, so I called my manager. I'm like, sorry, I'm going to be out for another like month and a half, 2 months. And I got my second surgery October 18th of 2023. So it'll be a year in 4 days. And I got that surgery. It was quick. It was easy. I came out of it and I was in a lot more pain after because they'd cut through that scar tissue. So my back was just killing me. I had a ton of back pain, especially on the left side. And I remember I rented the post-op nurse. It was the same lady. And she was like, what are you doing back? And I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. And they gave me like some pain pills, didn't touch the pain. I had a little bit of nerve. Well, I didn't. No, I only had back pain. I didn't have any nerve pain when I came out, which was surprising. And they gave me pain pills, didn't help. Then they gave me like a lot of didn't help. They gave me more, didn't help. And I was like, all right, just let me go home. I'll hurt there. Nothing unusual. I'll take back pain. It's a different type of pain. It's muscular. I'll take that all day. And I went home and I didn't have any pain for like 2 to 3 days in my nerve. And then it came back with a little buzzing and whatnot. And I went in for my 3 week post-op visit and I was still hurting like I was before the surgery. And my surgeon just like, dude, your nerve was on fire because it was compressed for so long. Then whenever we did the first surgery, you have to go and stretch it out to get under the nerve, to clear out the whole area. And then we had to do it again. He's like, I put a steroid on it when I was in there because it was red. It was red hot. It was on fire. He goes, you are going to hurt for about 6 months. There is no way getting around it. You're going to be in a lot of pain. But he's like, take these. We're going to give you a bunch of steroids. We want you to take them. I understand. You've been on NSAIDs for almost a year now. Take them. And I promise you here, you have gabapentin. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. At least he
And
gave you some expectation.
yeah,
It's nice to know ahead of time. Like, this is
yeah,
going to
because they
hurt
don't
for
tell you.
6 months.
Because they always tell you after the first surgery, they're like, "Oh, you're going to be magically 3 months. You go run a full marathon," and
Right.
it's not like that.
It's not.
And I think it's also important to add, like I had one physical therapist before my first surgery, and I ended up getting a second one when I got told that I was going to need surgery, just in case, like, see if I get a second opinion on physical therapy. It didn't help. Then between my two surgeries, I was going to physical therapy from the time that I started when I originally got like, hey, go to PT, whenever I found out it reherniated, and then preparing my body to get a second surgery. And I think that helped me a lot is trying to build that strength back up before I had that second surgery. And so I had the second surgery. They tell me I'm going to hurt forever pretty much. And they're like, okay, you can start PT at 8 weeks. I call them like, just to confirm, 8 weeks. And they're like, actually, because this is your second time, wait 10 weeks. So then I wait 10 weeks to start PT again. I started physical therapy and I was still hurting. And I think it was like January or February. I was like, please just give me another MRI. Even if it's just me being crazy and I'm just, because I was like, I've been going through this for so long. If it's just to tell me that it's not herniated, please let me do it. And the only place I could get in quickly was at like 5 a.m., an hour away. So I was like, I'm doing it. I don't care. I want it done now. And I get the MRI, and the lady was taking out my IV and all that. I was like, am I diagnosed as being a big wimp? And she's like, I can't tell you, but probably. And I got it back, and the disc was still in place and all good. And I was like, finally. And then at that point, it was kind of just like a weight off my shoulders. I was like, I finally have gotten to a point where it was probably like 2 months post-op, maybe 3 months post-op. At this point, I was like, finally. I know it's not hernia. I still got to be careful because you never can stop not being careful. And I started getting back into things. I started going to the gym again, and it was only doing machines, and I'm still only doing machines. And as I told you earlier, like I've dropped 27 pounds now since then, and I've gotten into, if not better shape than I was whenever I got hurt. And every now and again, my right leg, I'll have like a buzzing, and I'll just take a gabapentin, and it's kind of takes it away. And I can live with that. But then in about April, I was doing a bunch of traveling. So like right when I got fully cleared, I was like, hell, I've had a year of doing nothing. I was canceling vacations and stuff, and I wanted to be a pilot at the time, so I love to travel. So I was like in Germany, I was in Minneapolis, I was in Chicago twice. And on my second Chicago trip, I was walking, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to wear Brooks. I don't need to wear Asics. I don't need my old man shoes. My back is good now. I'm gonna wear my nice looking shoes. And I walked like 10 miles one day. That was fine. I got home and oh my gosh, my back was killing me. And I started to get nerve pain in my left leg, shooting, radiating all the way down my left leg. And I was like, oh,
This
this is
sucks.
the worst. I I was like, this is it. This is I'm done. I've just
Yeah.
put a metal rod in my back. I can't do this anymore. And I ended up it was like that for about a week. And I was not doing well with that because that pain, it was just like it was whenever I originally herniated on my right side. And I was like, crap. I started doing physical therapy. I went to a third physical therapist. I went specifically to a spine specialist at this point that one of my buddies who's the physical therapist now, he recommended me to go to him. And I started going to him and they were able to get it worked out. And I think it's just bulged. I haven't got an MRI because I'm like, what's the point anymore? I'm not getting another discectomy at this point. So, and I can manage it. And it is difficult because I do have to, with it being kind of where it's at right now, I do like 15 minutes of exercises and stretches every single morning just so I can go on with my day. But even with it being bulged, I just got back from Germany and had to sit on a plane for 9.5 hours and had no nerve pain. And I drove to, I think, Hilton Head this summer, and I think that's about 10 hours. Of course, I stopped once or twice and no nerve pain. So I've gotten it to a point where it is managed, but it certainly isn't the most fun. But I would definitely say, even though it has kind of bulged out on the left side, which is completely separate from my other ones,
Yeah. Same disc or you didn't get an
I
MRI?
think I didn't get an MRI, but the
Okay.
symptoms are it's portraying as the
Yeah.
L5 nerve. So,
Okay.
but no. And one thing I found by going to the third physical therapist was that my right leg is slightly smaller than my left leg, and my hips have and my pelvis has really been out of alignment for probably about 10 years now. And they're like, that's honestly probably what could have really caused your original issue was it being out of alignment. It was putting extra force, forcing that disc out. Because ever since I got that noticed, and I just put like a little like like a lift on my right foot in my shoes. I'm not in as much pain. It really helped my pain out, even on my left side, and it's kind of helped me live a normal life.
Right. Yeah, for you to herniate the disc so many times, well, right after surgery, made me wonder, like, is there some kinda bodily issue with your spine?
In all honesty, and I'm convinced that the disc is just faulty. I mean, I'm 24 now. I've had two back surgeries. It's bulged out again. I I think my goal is to probably make it till I'm at least in my 30s, and then possibly look at either an artificial disc or something at that point. I just hope I make it that far because I mean, there are still days where I'll tweak my back. It'll be muscular, which is nice, but it's a constant battle. But I can confidently say that it was the right decision to get both of the back surgeries. Like I did not have a life at all before the first one, and it was even worse after the first one. And it's I don't know. There's no real way to describe it unless you're going through it. Because I've had people reach out to me who have had their first one fail, and the only real like YouTube videos you see are like this one lady who had hers fail, and she decided not to get the second surgery. And she was like, "I can do stretches and it goes away and it's fine, whatever." That wasn't an option for me.
So it's devastating that you have to get the second surgery, but it's not the end of the world that you have to
It's
get.
not. I mean,
Right.
it's hell.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no other way to describe it. It is, you know what to expect at least going into it. You're like, well, I know what to expect, but it's difficult. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't talk about and that your surgeon's not going to talk about is it's really lonely going through all this because you can't go out with your friends and you can't really go out and do much, especially whenever you do the open. I really couldn't leave the house for 3 weeks pretty much because that's your danger period. You don't want to re-herniate till it scars over. So I like it, it was just very, very lonely. I was just alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like,
Well, that's why I started the podcast because it was the most it was lonely, and then you feel like no one knows what you're going through, and I was spent hours on YouTube way back then, like, just looking for someone who had the same story as me, so I was like, "Let me just put them all on a one channel."
yeah, it is. It's honestly terrible. I talk to people who have gotten like fusions, like all the old coworkers I have that are in their like 60s. They'll be like, "Oh, I got this fused. I got this fused." And I'm just like, "Yeah, I got two back surgeries as well because I'm 24 going on 70 now." So it's a pain, but I think I kind of in the beginning I wish that if there were more like if I would have had a physical therapist that addressed the original issue that I had right whenever I got started, but that's why I was so willing to come on here once I got everything kind of simmered down and figured out to be like, hey, look at this, because that can screw you up and it's helped me a lot. And it's not something that my surgeon brought up or the first two physical therapists brought up. And I had to ask about it. I went to the physical therapist. I'm like, could you like look at this? Because something doesn't feel right. Something has to be, there has to, and maybe it's the engineer in me. Something has to be causing this issue. If it's a faulty disc, it's a faulty disc, but I want to knock out every other option before I get to the point of just being like, well, I was just born that way.
Yeah, yeah. I interviewed a chiropractor a couple months ago for the podcast, and it's called "A Secret to a Healthy Spine" or something like that. And he talked a lot about symmetry in the body and how important it is, and people just don't realize. Just he's I think he related it to a car. Like if you have your tires that are out of alignment, they're gonna start ruining other things. And with your body, it's the same way. If your spine's out of alignment, it's gonna cause other issues.
Certainly. And I honestly think there might be a genetic part to it because, as I said, like my mom's had her neck fused. She had two levels in her neck fused. She had the
Yeah.
same level done as a microdiscectomy. And my sister herniated a disc in her neck when she was in college studying before
This
med
should have been
school.
a family show. You should have invited
It,
your mom and your
it
sister on
honestly
here.
should have been. And my sister could have given you all the science behind it now that
Yeah.
she's a doctor. So, but no, that was the funny thing about it. My mom, the entire time, because she grew up rough, so she's just like, anytime my sister and I were sick, she's like, suck it up, rub some dirt in. Whenever I was going through my back stuff, she's like, it'll be fine. You don't want that other surgery. You're fine. And I'm like, I am dying. I don't know how to cut my leg off. I don't care
Right.
anymore. Just cut the
Yeah.
leg off.
I was getting back surgery. I was 41, and I
Mhm.
was saying, "There's 20-year-olds that need this surgery. It's not my age."
It's terrible. There's no other way to really describe it. The pain that you like feel during this experience, and no one understands it. Because I would be like, my friends would invite me out, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't drive 20 minutes to be there. I can't do it. And it's funny. I have this one coworker who's invited me out twice, and both times it was once was right after I hurt my back, and I just couldn't go. And then I flared up my back like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, I need to rest. And I'm like, I am not using this as an excuse to not go out with you.
Right.
I
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
cannot do it right now. But
Never gonna
uh,
ask you again.
yeah, no, and
So, are you able to go back to flying, or does that still have to be on hold?
I I got a letter from my surgeon saying that I should be cleared. I would have to go through the whole medical process again. I have kind of personally taken a step back since it's re-bulged out on the other side because sitting does over time just kind of aggravate it. If I sit all day at work, it's going to flare it up a little bit. And I have a good, really a great job right now. So it's going to be hard for me. It would be hard for me to step away from what I'm doing right now. And I would have to spend every second of every day trying to become an airline pilot, which would I think the reward of it there isn't there for me anymore. It's unfortunate because I was right there at my test for my instrument commercial whenever I got hurt. And I mean, I talked to pilots because my current role, I can get on any of my company's planes and fly. with them for free. And I've talked to pilots who have had 2 discectomies done, and they're like, "Yep, I got them done." And then I had it rupture like 3, 4 years later, and I got it done again. But no, I got it, and I'm doing it now, and I'm fine. I mean, it hurts sometimes, but for me, I have a career already, so I kind of just taking a step back. And it's expensive. It's really
Yeah.
expensive.
How much work did you miss, do you think, with all this?
The first one was about 4.5 weeks. The second one was about the same. So I would say I missed probably about a combined 3 months of last year, which I was lucky because I had a full 100% pay for the time that I was out on short-term disability. And my manager was great. My company's really good at like if you show like that you're going to work, you take ownership of your work, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that you're accommodated. So my manager was like, you work from home, don't come in, do not push yourself, you get healthy. We want you healthy. And they ended up putting me on our most challenging engine type, actually, between my 2 surgeries. I was like, is this a punishment? And he's like, no, I know it seems like a punishment right now, but no, it's not. And I mean, it was really necessary. I don't think I could have gotten through it if my management team hadn't been as accommodating to me as possible, because there were days where I would just turn off my computer and just crawl to my bed and cry because I was in so much pain. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I cried more at that point in my life than I did on anything, because I was 23 and I thought everything was going well. I was flying. I had my test scheduled. I was making good money at my job. I was in great shape. And then it all was gone. I gained a bunch of weight because I couldn't do anything besides walk. I was in crippling pain all day. I couldn't even sit at my desk to do my job. So I was like, it was just terrible. There's no other way to describe it but terrible. And then between the 2 surgeries, that was probably the hardest part of it, is trying to find that solution. And you're pretty much bedridden, only to walk around. So all you're doing is like researching back stuff, back stuff, back stuff. And I'm like, I have every different path I could take, but what happens if I choose the wrong path again and get this other surgery and end up in a worse spot than I am now?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, it's a lot of stress.
yeah, yeah.
Worried about re-herniating or worried about the right decision to make.
Hmm.
But
And even now, like there'll be times where I'll be like, "Oh, oh, no, 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 are we good?"
mhm,
And you're
yeah,
always just like, "Oh no."
yeah.
So,
I think it took me a year to recover emotionally. There was definitely some PTSD involved. Every little sharp pain or
hmm,
tingle was like, "Oh God,
yeah.
here we go again."
Which I know I'm so excited to get to the year post-op mark. So 4 days from now,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get there. Even though I have the issues, like right now, my leg is just like kind of aching on my left side.
Mhm.
I can live with that. It's not nerve
Yeah.
pain. It's just a
Yeah.
little ache. But
Mhm.
one thing, this is important to mention, I guess, since I try to lift a lot, I didn't understand how much your muscles get messed up in your legs. So like my right leg is so much tighter than my left leg. So if I try to like do legs at the gym, it's almost impossible because I'll end up with terrible cramps in my right leg and all sorts of stuff. And it throws everything out of whack. And that's one thing I think I'm going to continue to go to PT for, is just trying to get my muscles and my legs, not just my back, strengthened, but just try to get them to where they're balanced. Because right now, like my right calf, it can't do much.
Yeah. No, spinal cord injuries, man, it affects so much. It's
Yeah, yeah,
but it does sound like you're turning a corner
that's the hope.
or have
And
turned your corner. Yeah.
yeah, and that's
So
that's the funny thing about it. I've gotten to travel the world since then because I was like, I'm not letting this up. So I've been to Germany a few times,
yeah.
Minneapolis, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I mean, the next month I'm going on to 7 different states and a few different countries, and I think I've been on 33 flights this year since I've gotten fully cleared. So I mean, I'm making the most of it, and I
There
probably
you
need to
go.
get myself hurt again, but
Yeah. Wait, so the important question is, have you gotten a new girlfriend?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, she was actually there whenever I bulged it out on my left side, and I was like laying on the couch. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Put me down. Just put me down." There's no. She's like, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" No, I'm just gonna lay here and just contemplate my entire life for the next week, and hopefully it'll get better at that point.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But it took me about a month and a half to work through that and get it back into where it was manageable.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
But
great. Jared, I really appreciate you being willing to come on here and share your story. I'm sure the people in the Reddit community will appreciate hearing you say, "It's not the end of the world that I needed a second
It
surgery."
feels like it, but
Yeah,
it's not.
it's not. No.
And you just want to get to that point each day because you're
Yeah,
just like,
and you
you
will.
never think it's going to end. And you never like, I never felt like through the entire process, I was like, I'm getting better. It was just
Mhm.
like one day I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's like,
my,
"Hey, wait a
I'm not
second."
dying. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like that. "Hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
I can say I feel kinda normal now."
And it's so slow. And that's the worst part about it is it just takes time.
Yeah,
It just takes so much time and you don't want it to, you want it to be now, but it,
right, right.
unfortunately.
Well, thank you again. And if you are a listener and you have a positive story of recovery from a serious neck or back injury, head over to bedbackbeyond.com and click share your story. I would love to include your voice on the show. Jarrett, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I'm so glad to hear things are improving for you.
Thank you for having me on.